Iris by Argan & Co, l'équipe de data scientists et data engineers du cabinet de conseil Argan & Co et Supply Chain Village sont fiers de vous présenter leur podcast consacré à la data. Construire à l'échelle une équipe data from scratch, le retour d'expérience de Karim Louedek, professionnel de la data.
Good morning, I'm Fabrice Corbière, partner at Argan & Co. I had the pleasure to steer many projects with our Data for Operation brand, which is Iris by Argan & Co. You know what? This podcast will talk about data, but not the data by itself or the data for itself. The topic will be how to implement a data practice from scratch and at scale. Our guest is today Karim Louedek, who've been CDO in several companies. Good morning, Karim, and thanks a lot for being with us today. So, Karim, would you please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, thank you, Fabrice. Thanks a lot for the invitation. So, yes, up to last mid-October, I was the group chief data officer at Servier. Servier, which is the second biggest French pharmaceutical company in France. Previously, I spent 3 years for that. Previously, I was the chief data officer for Maison du Monde. Maison du Monde is a French retailer in furniture, mainly located in Europe. And my first job was when I was hired in M6. M6, which is an affiliate from Bertelsmann Group, and it's second also biggest private TV channel in France, and I was hired as their first data scientist actually, and after a few months I was in charge also of data strategy, data science, also data related to the ad tech business.
Okay, so you've been working in data from the very beginning. Were you predestined for this job? What exactly attracted you for this specialty?
Actually, maybe not so much we could say, but actually, yes, I was. I will explain. I'm a physicist by training from Paris-Saclay University in south of Paris, and I was working in physics, and particularly in physics of the two infinities in astroparticle physics. So during 6 years, so during my PhD thesis and also during my postdoc position, I was in an international collaboration composed of 17 countries, 500 scientists, and we were working on an observatory located in Argentina, in the Pampa Amarilla. So we had a lot of data. We were collecting a lot of data by this observatory, and also we were simulating a lot of data. And we have huge amount of data to analyze. And actually, during these 6 years, during my day-to-day job, it was just to analyze data. And so my first job, when I decided to leave public research and go back to private company, I was aware that at this time there was what they called the sexiest job in the world, which was a data scientist job. Guys liking computing, mathematics, and business. And this is how I decided to do this job and to join my first company.
Oh, okay. Excellent. And I would like to know how you would define the mission of a data department in a group that, let's say, develops, industrializes, produces, and distributes products, whatever the product would be.
Several missions, for sure. So the first one is to define a data strategy which is strongly linked to the global strategy of the company. I like to say that a standalone data strategy is a nonsense, and we have to be really in support to the business strategy defined by the ExCom members of the group. Then another mission, you have of course data governance, which is related to data management. So you have to define the roles like data owners, you have to define data quality rules, and the idea behind that is just to talk the same language across the whole company. And you see when you talk about revenue, about customer, about what is a product, it's a lot of stuff to align all these guys and talking the same language. Also, in strong partnership with HR departments, you have to push a data acculturation for all the employees, and it's a lot of work in companies when they have more than 10 or 20 years old, you see. It is also the animation of some data communities composed of early adopters or to power users. Of course, in the missions, you have the tech vision for data. And the best way to implement it, usually, it's to implement your data platform, to activate all the usages in the group.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to develop the different data products to activate your business. So like the self-service analytics, all the stuff related to data accessibility, the standalone data products, and also data products combining data science, AI for the business teams.
Okay. When I go back maybe 15 years ago, I understood. I had a bit of difficulties to understood what was meaning really data science, etc. And in fact, since maybe 10 years, I understood very well what it is about. And I realized how it changed, I would say, the context of a large company in terms of the way they are used to use their information system, but also to develop it or to deploy it. So what would you say about how data changed the paradigms of information systems, especially in large companies?
Yeah, huge question. And as you said, since maybe now 10 years, they are talking about that data, it's oil for the company. So first, maybe let's define what we could call the legacy approaches that we had in the IT teams, and that sometimes we are still in the companies, and especially in the very large companies, and this is very normal. So you integrate tools in your information system. So let's take, for example, a new ERP system, a new CRM tool, a new compliance tool. All these tools, they are usually in different technologies or coming from different software editors like SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, and all this kind of stuff. And of course, or unfortunately, their associated data, they are totally blocked in the tools, except for what we call usually the master data. And also, you can see that in this kind of approaches, all the access data management is totally non-existent. And we applied the bold approximation that access management to the tool is the access management for the data. So this is very nice. But in parallel, on the other side, you can see guys like Gartner, which have defined what we call the data fabric. So the data fabric, the idea is the following. Whatever the tool, all the data have to be gathered and being able to live in the information system without their tool producing them. So we have actually dissociated the data from their tools. And even if you change tomorrow your tool, you will keep your data, you will keep your oil inside your company. And in such approach, it begins really to be very interesting and to change the approach of the IT teams, because we do not talk, or we should not talk anymore about classical architecture, but we should talk about product vision. We should not talk anymore about tools, but we should talk about platforms for supply chain, platform for marketing, platform for e-commerce, and actually all your information system is just a combination of platforms. And finally, we talk about transversal business processes across different tools. And this is actually how we can be really impactful for our business and value creation. So in one sense, the information system of today should be the combination of data, platform, and product. But you see, Fabrice, we have a long way for a few companies concerning this vision.
Yeah, for sure. And it would allow a lot of company to get rid of nightmare about managing a lot of interfaces in one-to-one,
exactly,
end-to-end points. So for sure, it has a huge value. So you've been a CDO for several companies. I imagine starting from nowhere or nothing. So can you tell us how you set up a data team from scratch? What are the key stages? Is there any key stages to go through? What are the key success factors of building such a team? Can you go into? Please go.
Yep, sure. First of all, I would say that
maybe
yes.
How many in a large company? Not necessarily telling which one, but in a large company, a data team can be several people, several dozen of people, several hundreds.
You have a lot of different situations about that. You see, I was in discussion with a guy yesterday. I was telling him that when I was in Maison du Monde, we were 35 people in data for a turnover of about 1 billion euros per year and 80,000 employees, and he was telling me that what he sees from his side is more maybe 5 to 10 guys in the data team for such companies. So you have a lot of different cases, but what it is sure, and maybe I'm a bit biased, is that when I join a company, this is not only, of course, you have the sense of urgency. Data is very important, but not only data, it's all the digital transformation that you have in the company which has a sense of urgency. And I like when I join a company to see that it's not a question of data, but a much larger question of transformation for the whole group. And this is much easier to achieve our goals at the end.
Okay.
So from a data perspective, I would say that we have 3 main dimensions. People, the first one. You have to attract good talent with good skills, tech skills, adaptability skills, agility skills. This is a huge work to do that already.
Yeah.
Also, you have tech, the second dimension. Data is often a way for a company to test and to move to the new technologies like public cloud, observability, scripting some infrastructure, you see. And the third dimension, it's about processes, ways of working with governance, prioritization, and just only the fact that we cannot do everything, so you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
Just this sentence, you see. And none of them have to be underestimated, actually. And concerning the different stages that you were talking about, I would define, just to be short, a timeline with 2 periods. A first one where you will be very focused on pain points and just to improve the quality of work of your colleagues and to being able to improve the relationship between business teams and data teams.
It's also a step to demonstrate the value of
and
the
to
data
demonstrate
team.
the value, yes.
Okay.
And this is an easy way, and usually it's what we do, and this is a kind of a way to put the data team as a problem solver for our colleagues. And then, and I would say that it's much more difficult to reach the second step, it's to switch from this pain point approach to what I call a systemic approach. You have the different main business processes of your company. You can map what are the most important data products related to these processes. And actually, you can prioritize the data products with respect to value creation. So you see, from pain points where maybe you do not know exactly if this is the best thing to do at this time, to a systemic approach where really you can apply, deploy your data strategy for the whole group.
I imagine that the first step, dealing with pain points to get rid of, you are as a Messi in front of your customers. But what about the second one? Does it require a sort of change of culture or change of behavior in your internal clients?
Yes. You see, even the word, the expression of business process, just this word, it's not known by everyone in the company, and even really nice guys in the company. So you see, just to explain to your colleagues that the business can be and the company can be modelized with these processes, and just to understand what is the most important thing in this process, it's already a lot of stuff and a switch of mindset already.
Maybe in a few words, not to spend too much time on it, but we are hearing a lot of terms, a lot of words to describe what people do inside the data. How would you segment the different roles inside a data factory, let's say, a data team?
Yeah, usually what I like, it's not to be too much specialized in the terms, even if you can see on the market a lot of terms.
That's the purpose of my question, in fact.
Yes. So maybe I will take the example of my latest team. You see, so I had 3 departments of, let's say, expertise. The first one, data analytics. So you can have inside the data analyst, maybe, and sometimes you can see also on the market, they are called as analytics engineers. So the idea is just to do SQL, produce tables, produce dashboards, and I hope that these dashboards answer to business questions, you see. Second department, which is related to data science and AI, so data scientists, ML engineers, and all these kind of roles, just to integrate all the AI capabilities and machine learning capabilities in your business for your company.
Okay.
The third department was composed of data engineers, data ops, so the industrials, the programs, the products, they build the platform. So they are really important in the beginning of your success also.
Okay.
And then you have data products, so with product managers, product owners, so really guys coming from agility stuff. They have business questions. They will develop a product and they will build a squad or feature team based on data engineers, data scientists, data analytics to do that.
And they are
that's
sort
it.
of orchestrator and interface with business.
Yeah, yes, okay. Exactly. And sometimes they are called also, you see, as data translators.
Yeah.
Because there is a huge amount of work to really design what will be the good product for the good question. And I will not tell you that we succeed and we have a success each time. This is a huge amount of work, and this is still a challenge for a lot of data departments. And then in transversal also to all these departments, the last one that I had, it's related to data governance, so what we were talking previously, data acculturation, data communities, and this is also as a roles, let's say, lead data governance, lead data acculturation. Sometimes also I was trying to push the role of data community manager actually in the company.
Okay. When I go back to maybe a few months ago or even a few years ago, in the growth of Iris, or Data Factory for operations, we struggled a lot, not to find business, because business of data is growing, but to find people to deliver this business. Is the HR market still difficult, or did you see in an evolution in the way that people are demanding or easy to hire?
I would say that it changed through the years.
Yeah.
You see, I would say in France, in 2015, even maybe 2018, 2020, I was seeing on a lot of applications for data scientists. It was a bit the guy or the girl who will join the group and who will do everything in data for the group. And then you can see that the market moved from the need of data scientists to a strong need of data engineers. Because actually the company understood that, okay, it is very nice to do a proof of concept, but it's just a proof of concept.
Yeah.
And now I need to scale
to
this use
industrialize.
case
Yeah.
through the company. And they were blocked. And actually it was not the same skills. So they decided to hire a lot of data engineers. But the universities and schools, engineer school, are still producing data scientists actually.
Yeah.
So it changed very fast. So first point. Second point, the most technical positions nowadays attract a lot of freelancing. And this is also a point that we have to take into account in the market when you hire. And actually, when you see data engineers or even very new roles like data ops, where really you do not have school or university for this kind of guys, they learn directly by themselves. You can see that this is a market with a lot of freelancing guys. And I think that HR departments today should also think about that and see how we can make a very nice strategy concerning all these roles, and also to develop the expertise directly in the companies, you see, and not only hire very nice experiments and experienced guys, but also very young guys just leaving their school or their university.
Okay, very clear. And I felt we felt exactly the same trends, quite recent trends. So taking into account the fact that it's not so easy to grow a data factory internally or even externally, I imagine that after a while your data teams becomes bottleneck compared to everything what business would like for tomorrow. So how do you prioritize? Do you have a sort of sales and operation planning internally to have an image for supply chain? How is your process to prioritize the job of your dozens of people?
You pronounce the word, bottleneck.
Yeah.
Yes. But you see, as a former physicist, I would say that the bottleneck effect is totally expected and can be easily modelized, actually. When you have a central team, because as we were talking previously, the data team is usually a central team, so it's composed of several dozens of guys, when you are lucky. And this team will be always a bottleneck for a group of people much larger than this central team. So this is expected. So how we deal with, of course. So for now, and firstly, when you launch your team, yes, kind of SNAP process also. You put a governance. So in our case, it was not just a governance for data, but a governance integrated directly in the whole IT department of the company. So the idea is very simple. Let's say on the paper, you have guys from business. They will estimate the business value expected for the use case. Mm-hmm. You have guys from tech and data, and they will estimate the complexity and the time to do this job. And then you should prioritize. And that's it.
Okay.
And it could be very nice. But you see, of course, even with this approach, bottleneck, as you said, and when we have the maturity, let's say, of the companies, you have frustration. And it is normal, and the business teams will never believe that you will have enough capacity to do all the jobs that you have to do. So the idea actually is to tackle this bottleneck because it's just physics, as I told you. So when the maturity and mindset of your employees have switched to adaptive performance mindset in the company, you can take, and it can take several years for sure. You can start what we call an hybrid model. Whatever your business or IT department, everyone at the beginning, they are just colleagues. They work, so they can work in, let's say, a virtual team, which is dedicated to a common business goal. And so the frontier between business, between IT, it's virtually removed. And so it's the best way, when you do that, to really scale your capacity to develop rapidly use cases, because actually it's the colleagues for the whole companies that you will be able to integrate in these virtual teams, you see. And this is the only way to scale, but because it will never be just a few dozen of guys in a team, in a central team, who will make the company data-driven at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
But it takes time, because we are talking about humans.
If we take a step back, looking at your career, where was the areas, or what was the areas where the company invests the most? Was it about for product development, for supply chain, for purchasing, for manufacturing, for physical distributions, marketing, sales? So when you look at all the value chain of a company, where was, from your point of view, the most challenging and the most important investments in data?
Yep. What I have seen, I would say it's more related to marketing, sales activities, and all the stuff related to the funnel of conversion of your customers. So conversions, it means an order of on a website. It means video watched on a streaming platform. It can be also prescriptions by a healthcare professional. So thanks to data, when you see Fabrice during this last 10 years, we have seen a huge improvement for companies in the understanding of their customers. This is usually what we have behind the buzzword 360 degrees view of your customers. Yeah. So actually, data breaks the silos between devices, so TV, smartphone, tablet, desktop. Data also breaks the silos between online and offline activities when you are a retailer and when you want to optimize your omnichannel strategies. And thanks to all this data that you gather, that you can consolidate, you have a great knowledge of your customers. Okay. And so you can activate product recommendations, video recommendations, customer targeting. So this is a field where lots of improvements, lots of data activations were made these last years. And you have also models like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Meta.
For sure that's marketing and B2C is probably the most advanced in terms of data because they began sooner than other domains, I imagine.
Yes, it was the case. Yeah.
Okay. So Karim, as a conclusion, could you please give me the use case you're the most proud of in terms of value brought to the business?
Yeah, so in marketing, I will take the example of work that we did with the team in Maison du Monde. It was what we called the customer marketing platform, the famous CMPs. You see, you have, and thanks to data and thanks to digital activities, you have different marketing channels. You have emails, you have TV, you can also have media buying on internet. So you have different marketing channels. We had also a legacy customer segmentation, which was really much more designed to monitor the quality of your customer database and really to activate your customers. And so the challenge was really how you move from a business from only one marketing channel to a multi-channel approach. So what we did is that, first of all, we defined a new KPI to estimate the quality of your customer. And this is what we call the customer lifetime value for the next 12 months. So the idea is how much money they should spend on your business during the next 12 months. And thanks to data, thanks to historical data, and thanks to AI and data science, you can do this kind of calculations. And then we arrange all those customers from the highest values to the lowest values. Yeah. We produce 10 deciles as a new segmentation. And here you see you have really a segmentation to activate your business and not only to monitor the quality of your customers.
To support your strategy as well.
Yeah, and so the idea was to, let's see if you buy media or if we send more emails to the first decile, how they will react. And do the same with, let's say, with the segments with the lowest predicted values. And actually, we had a very nice success where we have seen that the segments with the most predicted value had to be even more solicited by marketing solicitations, like emails, etc. And the lowest segments they were sleeping. So just let them like that and don't push them marketing solicitation for them. This is really useless and not a good point for them.
Very clear. Huge thanks, Karim, for your time in this podcast. It was a pleasure listening to you.
Merci d'avoir suivi ce podcast sur Supply Chain Village en partenariat avec Argan & Co. À très bientôt.